Hey there. Welcome to another episode of Carve Your Own Fucking Path, a podcast made to inspire you to create a life and business on your own terms. You'll hear candid interviews with people who have boldly decided to blaze their own trail, and the occasional solo show with me, your host. I'm McKenna, on-camera coach, storyteller, and remote video producer. 5 years ago, I moved from my home base of San Francisco to the coast of Portugal, taking a big leap into the unknown. Some called it courageous. I called it carving my own fucking path. Today, I live in Lisbon and run a business that elevates your online presence, helping you show up confidently on camera to create videos that showcase your brand and personality so you can get more visibility and attract clients by being yourself. If you're just starting out in business or you've been doing it for a while, you're sure to pick up tidbits of actionable advice and hopefully feel inspired by stories from people who have chosen the unconventional and sometimes messy path. And if you've been waiting for a sign to start carving your own fucking path, this is it. I'm so happy you're here. Today's episode brings me so much joy because I am chatting with Katie McKenna, who is an aggressive chaser of joy. This woman is a professional speaker, a life coach, and best-selling author of her memoir, How to Get Run Over by a Truck. You guys, you have to read this book. It is such an honest and raw story about being faced with your mortality at a really young age. Katie shares about how she was on this path. She was focused, driven, and 100% sure that she was in control. And then one day, it all changed in a split second. I can't wait for you guys to meet Katie and hear her story. Katie lives in Brooklyn with her husband, and she is quarantining in Vermont. All right, you guys, here's Katie McKenna.
Thank you so much for having me. So delighted to be here.
Thank you. So what's funny is, so your book, I'm just going to jump right to that. I've handed it out to many people. And even today I was mentioning to a friend, I said, I'm interviewing, Katie, who wrote the book. She's like, I'm reading that book right now. So
get out of here. That is so nice. That's wonderful. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yes. So it's such an amazing story. And well, why don't you tell us a little bit or a lot about, your story, but also I want to go way back, kind of your path, like childhood, before your path took a very different turn.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, to kind of start off just about like what the book is based on, sort of. Is that a good place to start?
Yeah, why not? Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. So about 12 years ago, I was getting up to go for an early morning bike ride, and I was finishing up a 10-mile ride, and I was at a stoplight, and I indicated that I was going to make a right turn, and there was a truck on my left-hand side, and then a car behind it. Neither one had their indicator on. And I had indicated I saw this sunrise, like just peeking out on my right-hand side. It was like starting to rise over these low brick buildings where I live in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And I thought that would be kind of the perfect way to start my day, was to get to see this gorgeous sunrise. And so I like saw the light go green, and I made my right turn wide and easy. And unfortunately, the truck that was on my left-hand side didn't see me, didn't see that I indicated. And I missed the cab of the truck by only a few inches, but the back part of the truck, I was run over by the first four wheels of an 18-wheeler. And then there was a brake. And then I was run over by the second set of four wheels of the truck. Luckily the driver stopped, but he never came back to kind of see what had happened to me. I stayed conscious during the entire event, which is insane. Crazy and super different. I know. You had that sort of like idea in my mind of being like, if I close my eyes, then that meant that I would die. I was picked up by EMTs, rushed into emergency surgery, where I asked the doctor if I was going to live, and she told me probably not. And then I was intubated for 10 hours of emergency surgery. I know, isn't it? It's just crazy. I mean, and the thing that's interesting is I've done the research, right? And that doctors are supposed to do that, because if they think someone is gravely injured, they want for them to let go and not suffer and not struggle. Isn't that crazy?
So they're trained to tell you the worst case scenario.
Absolutely. Totally.
So you were 24.
Yes.
Right. So you're just, young 20s, living in Brooklyn. And well, take us back just right before then. Like, what path were you on?
Yeah. Well, I just started a job in finance, literally the month before. My crash was October 2nd, and September 1st was the first day of my working in finance. I come from a Wall Street family. So my dad worked on Wall Street, my uncles, my cousins, my brother, like everybody. And before that, I'd been doing nonprofit, like catering sales. So random, but I was an event planner and an event manager, and I'd been pretty unhappy. And my dad was like, why don't you just work in finance? Like you like sales, you'll be great. It'll be great. Like, and I wasn't nuts about it, but I did like it. Like I liked it. I liked the people. I liked what I was doing. I was like, I can do a job in finance. Like I can do this. And yeah, that was what was happening in my life. And I thought, I was like, okay, I'm going to be an internal wholesaler. Like I will become an external wholesaler. I'll make tons of money. I'll like live my dream. I'll probably get a nice place on Long Island. I'll live the dream. And things, and I was dating, someone he and I were best friends from high school, and we had started dating. We'd been dating for like, I think about 2 years at that point. Okay. So like I was like, he and I are going to get married. I'm going to work in finance. I was like, I'll be married by 27. I'll be ready to go. Like, life, I got life by the shootstrings,
So you had it all planned out.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. I knew exactly what was going on. I was completely sure of myself.
Okay. So that is your personality. Just plan it out. Ambitious, clearly. Okay.
Big time planner, very ambitious, wanting to be successful, but like also an incredibly anxious person. And so I think that's why I kind of was really, really did not like change, really was like nervous about anything unknown. Did everything that I could to make sure that I wouldn't get hurt or that things wouldn't get out of control,
Yeah, definitely. And what was your idea of success back then?
I think it was probably financial, if I'm being honest with myself. I wish that wasn't completely true. I had worked for a nonprofit and I wanted to do good. But it wound up being like such a stressful job, and I worked like crazy and made very little money. And I was like, this isn't what I want. And I think that like I saw other people in my life, their titles getting better, their salaries increasing. They weren't struggling. I was like, this was great. And also, interestingly enough, another thing that I did in tandem with the day job that I had was that I also worked as a stand-up comedian. So like did that, those two things. Yeah. So I did both. I was like, okay, well, I can just work in finance, but then I'll just like make jokes at night. Like it'll be great.
Got it. Okay. So you were already, putting yourself out there as in a speaking role, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So take us back. So you're in the hospital, the doctor's saying, high chance that you won't survive this.
Yeah.
Can you remember? Oh, you were very descriptive in the book. I remember you could hear the noise of the truck, as it was rolling over, and then you were in the hospital for a year.
I was in the hospital. Yeah, I was actually in the hospital itself for 2.5 months, all in.
Okay.
And then I was with my parents. I was very lucky in that my parents, just like now they're taking me in. They took me in and created a makeshift hospital. They were able to release me to my parents, and they set up a makeshift hospital room in their living room. And so I just took over that space, and we had a hospital bed. We had like wheelchairs, the whole nine. But that I was in the hospital for about 2 months, unable to walk. They told me that I would never walk again. I couldn't feel my body from the rib cage down, unfortunately. So it was, it was a very scary time.
And you have a big family.
I do. Yes. I'm one of 4 children.
And so they all just pitched in. And
they were incredible. Yeah. My older brother had just started, getting his MBA at Columbia. My little sister was in college. She was in her junior year, and my youngest brother had just started his freshman year of college. And they all were, both of my parents took went on short-term disability at different times so they could take care of me. My older brother basically moved back into my parents' house because where I live on Long Island, it's like 26 minutes into the city, or where I grew up. And so he moved in basically with my parents, and just was supportive, was there, did everything that he could. My sister spent her entire Christmas break just literally taking care of me. And my little brother, he's 18 years old. So there was only so much that a young man can do. But my sister was in between. She was about to go to her semester abroad. So she wound up having 2 months at home, and she just took exceptional, beautiful, kind, loving care of me in this way that was so meaningful.
Yeah. Everyone stepped up.
They really did. They were incredible. Truly.
Yeah. And, okay. So what was the mindset that you had at that time, being 24, probably feeling invincible, very controlling of this is what's going to happen?
Oh yeah. 100%. I think at that mindset before I was run over, your insight is 100% right. I did think I was invincible. I thought that I never really heard no. 24 years old, gal around town, just get anything on a smile and a wink, Yeah. And I think that I had it in my mind that everything was always going to be easy street. I was the world was my oyster, and I believed it. So I went from this world of yeses to a world of no, and completely out of control, completely dependent on everybody else for everything. It sounds like such a silly thing to say, but I couldn't even get a glass of water if I wanted a glass of water. I know that sounds no, when I can get up and get myself a glass of water, I really am so grateful. I'm this is the best. It's an amazing thing to be fully dependent on other people for all of your needs.
Yeah. Huge wake up call, I'm sure.
Big time. Absolutely.
Understatement. But so then you're living at home for about a year, and then how did you transition back into any kind of normal life after that?
Yeah. Slowly, really slow. At first the first thing that I did was, at first I lived like I was going to die tomorrow. I was reckless. I was out every night until 3 a.m. I was doing everything and everything. I couldn't get enough life. I just felt like I needed to consistently be at the well of life and doing all of the things. And I wanted everything in fast forward. I was aggressive. I was reckless. And I was pretty sure that I was going to die. I was almost absolutely convinced that my life was going to end within the year, for sure. I was God missed me once. He's coming back. Yeah.
Okay. So you thought not from the accident, but in some other way you would somehow.
Yeah. Something else would happen. That's something, either whether it be repercussions from the accident or something else. I didn't think that I was meant to be alive. And I felt like I was living in a limbo, I think, for a long time. And I was okay, I'll just do the stuff that I'm supposed to do, but not exactly alive, not 100% alive, but a certain percentage dead in a way of just being it was very wild. It was a very, very wild period of time. And I just wanted more because I was sure that it was going to be snatched from me at any time.
Okay. So operating in manifestation talk, I guess it's on really, really tight to everything. So coming from a place
exactly
of fear, sounds like.
Totally. Oh my gosh. Terrified. Because I think that I had done all the right things, right? On the front end. I had been a careful planner. I had been a good girl. I had been a good daughter, a good friend. I'd followed all the rules, and I still got run over by a truck. Yeah. And so okay, what if I just pull the rubber band a different way and let it stretch out as far as it can, and then sort of see where I end up? And then I just didn't care. I would cross the street without looking, in New York City. I'd be cool. Doesn't matter.
Damn.
It's crazy. It was so crazy.
Yeah. But it makes sense. I mean, with any trauma, I'm sure, our brains try to make sense of things, but it's almost, did you feel if I've already been at that level, it can't go any more, it can't get worse than that, right?
Absolutely. Exactly. That was it. I wasn't afraid of dying anymore. Like I was aware of it. I wasn't afraid of pain because I wasn't afraid of pain and I wasn't afraid of dying. I just kind of was like, I have no control. Like I just was like, there's no control. So why not spin out?
Mm-hmm.
And, I think the first time that I started to really care again was I went out for a walk and I was in a new relationship and I was starting to fall in love. And I suddenly was like, I crossed the street. I was on a walk and I crossed the street and I almost got hit by a truck and only missed me by a couple inches.
Oh my God.
Because they like hopped the curb, like whatever it was. And I was like, oh no, I want to, like, there's more that I have to give. Not that there's more life to be lived, but like I owe the world something. So I kind of need to stick around and I need to be thoughtful with the way that I'm living because like, yeah, I'm okay with dying, but I'm also, I think that there's a gift here that I should share.
So you had that after the hospital, after that year, this is, so that realization came afterwards. And you do talk about in the book. And I can, because, you know, you were such, you write in such a descriptive way. I felt like, you know, we were just all there with you and Dad would pop the champagne all the time and, you know, and just celebrating all these moments. So it seems like after the fact, after you're then walking again, able to function, that's when it clicked for you that you really wanted to give back and like really live fully. Okay.
Yeah. And I think understanding that it was understanding that this was a gift versus it almost not a gift, but like being really conscious that there were so many people who didn't get that opportunity, that there are people who have died and didn't get so lucky. Like, how dare I be wasteful? Yeah. And, you know, and thinking of it as really of being like, there's this quote that I love, which is the purpose of life is to find your gift. The meaning of life is to give that gift away. And I think, something that I realized was like, while I was in the hospital, all that I wanted was a book or something. I wanted a story that spoke to me, that made me feel less alone. And I couldn't find it. So I wrote the book I wanted to read. And I started writing when I was in the hospital. And at first it was just like journal entry. Yeah, please.
Oh, so when you started writing in the hospital, was it more of a journal type of thing, or did you have the vision that you wanted to write a book?
I think it was more of a journal thing. But then as time went on, I was like, oh, this could be something that's interesting and potentially helpful for other people. And I think that became something that I was really, really aware of, which was a really great thing. But it took me a while. It took me, cause I wrote like throughout that year. Right. But it took me a long time to like believe that it could be a book or that anybody would be interested in reading it other than like me, you know?
Right.
But it was a beautiful catharsis, but also I was hopeful that it would be helpful.
Okay. And then you continued on. So you just came out with the book, 3 years ago now or years ago. And so
yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay. So you had 10 years in between. So how the hell do you write a book, first of all?
Oh my goodness. I honestly, like my process was when I was in the hospital, I like got a used laptop that was my godfather's son's. And I just started typing, and just kind of like typing out feelings, but understanding, I think that was a lucky thing about having done stand-up is that I understood things as like sets of being like, these are just vignettes. These are like, I'm not going to put the pressure on being like, this is a whole book that I have to write, but I can write a chapter at a time. Right. Yeah. And I just found things that I thought were interesting or funny or moving or meaningful. And I started writing then. And then when it got back to work, I had to do this like in tandem with my day job working in finance. So I would get up in the mornings at 5. I would write for 2 hours, shower, get ready, get into work by like 8:15. I would edit during my lunch hour. And then I would write I get home by like 5:30 or so, and then write for another 3 or 4 hours. And I did that for years.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The thing
that was interesting. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I like told some people, but I was sort of embarrassed about it. I wound up like, I wrote the book. I think it took me a year all in, just a little bit over a year to write it while doing it in tandem with like working.
Okay.
And then there was the process of like editing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to hire an editor who helped me a lot. And then the book got rejected so many times, like so many,
Wow.
a shockingly amazing number of times, which was kind of incredible. 125 times, I think, that I got rejected. Yeah.
And you would physically send it in the mail. So the process is like for manuscript.
Yeah, you send a manuscript and you send like a couple of chapters. I'd sent like the first chapter, an outline, with like being like, there's more if you're interested. And I did tell some people, but not a lot, because it can be scary to tell people your dreams, right?
What were you afraid of the most?
And that people would say like, I wasn't a writer, like, why are you, even now it's hard for me to believe that that's true. Being like, I think probably that I was afraid that people would be like, what hubris, to say that you're a writer. Right. And I think that was something that scared me.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any proof? Did people ever say that to you? Like, even with comedy? I mean, that's...
Oh yeah, totally. All the time. People would say that. That's the thing about, I think about like carving your own path, right? Mm-hmm. Is that when you are saying, I believe myself to be worthy, or I have a dream and I'm willing to invest my time, effort, and energy into trying to make that dream happen, people are surprised at it because surprised or agitated or
envious,
or just envious. Yeah, exactly. Judgy because they're not doing that. And that you saying that you want something makes them think like, I want to be a writer. Why do you get to do this? And why not me?
Yeah.
And then they get angry at you for it.
Yes. And so, yeah, that's a huge one. And it's confusing because you think it's about you.
I know. Right.
At that time, especially being mid-20s, and into having big dreams. Yeah. So you kind of kept it a secret.
Yeah.
And then
totally.
The people that you did tell, were they excited? Did you have good support? Did your family know?
My family did know. They were very supportive, especially because of the idea of the catharsis piece of it.
Yeah.
I think they were really, really conscious that I will say that I think that the reason why I was able to process everything in the way that I did is because of having been able to go through that process. And I think that when I explained it as the idea of wanting to help people, the end game was never to be a bestseller. It was never to even I call it hood famous. When people know that you've written a book, I'm obviously this isn't for riches here. But of they were if the idea that it could help other people, then yeah, absolutely. And that was, I think, the most helpful piece was just that it was this is just because you have got a story to tell that's hopeful and helpful and honest. And I'm a perfectly nice girl, but I was selfish and I was unkind and I was rude and self-involved and there were good parts. I wound up, everything turned out I think I turned into a person that I like being, but so naive, so also really sheltered and really lucky and super blessed in so many different ways. And being aware of that and putting that out there, it's a lot of vulnerability. And also it's a lot of clarity around my own family of them having their story put out there too. Mm-hmm. But friends were really supportive. Family was really supportive. Everybody was incredibly kind. I was very, very lucky in that way.
Mm-hmm. Did you have what did you imagine when you're writing this every day for a year and many years? Did you ever imagine speaking on stages or having it published and, on a bookshelf and people are sending pictures? I saw this, I mean, what was your vision? Because I know you're big on manifestation and visualization, I'm assuming anyway,
yes.
A big dreamer. So yeah, what kind of things did you picture? And then also,
oh gosh, I think I don't even know. That's such a great question. I'm trying to think. I think that like I had hoped that I would be able to like I did say many years ago, like I'd love to be a motivational speaker and a life coach. I would love to be able to like help and support people. The first time that I saw my book on a shelf, I just wept. Like I could not believe it. I just couldn't. And I think that like I had dreamt about the idea of maybe seeing somebody reading it on the subway. That was like my biggest dream, was like, if I saw somebody reading my book, like on the L train, I will absolutely just like lose my mind. Yeah. And that did happen. And it was its own like little tiny miracle, which was so cool. But I don't know that the way that the path that I've kind of gotten onto with the speaking, the thing that's been incredible, that I hadn't even anticipated and is more beautiful than I'd ever hoped, is that a lot of the talks that I'm giving have to do with patient care and patient experience. Having the opportunity to speak with medical professionals about like how we can remember each other's humanity, and also to inspire, and not inspire, but like to reinforce that these medical professionals are heroes. They are magical unicorn human beings who we are so blessed to work with and to be around. And that has been, I think, like the greatest joy. And like the truth is that things are still happening with the book and in life that I still can't believe, like that there's, the thing that's the craziest is the book potentially becoming a television show, which is just like that I still can't, like, I even say it out loud and I'm like, that's a ridiculous thing for you to say out loud. But, I never would have thought that in a million years. Never. It doesn't sound ridiculous, but yeah. Oh, well, you know what? That's because you're a gem.
Well, I mean, it just makes sense, but I can understand when it hasn't even been something you've thought of. That's the thing is, and that's what I'm wondering about, your imagination when you were doing all these things and thinking like, what if, and then the what ifs have completely surpassed like what you dreamed of.
Yeah. It's absolutely blown them out of the water.
Yeah. What does that mean to you? What does that prove to you or show you? I mean, now as a life coach, especially when you're working.
Yeah. That is such a great question. I think that what that proves to me is that sometimes you have to make no your favorite word. Of just like being like, okay, you're going to tell me no, like I have a way to transcend that, or I can figure out a workaround that truly in so many instances, not all, because that's not completely fair, but a lot of the times when there is a will, there is a way. Mm-hmm. And when you believe something, it doesn't matter what the rest of the world thinks. It doesn't matter if, somebody tells you that's ridiculous and that what you're hoping for will never happen, or, or like it's too hard, the market is too saturated, you aren't that interesting. I mean, like the rejection letters that I got from the publishers were things like, this story is not very interesting, you're a bad writer. Like it was like, but I was like, I think that, I mean, of being like, if you choose the right people to be in your tribe and the people to support you who matter, like you have an unbelievable opportunity to write your own story and to figure out what it is that you want from your life. And as long as you're resilient, there's very little that can stop you.
That's amazing. Yeah. And we hear these stories a lot about people starting businesses or putting themselves out there, with any kind of creative project, especially, and just being so focused on getting it out there. But at the same time, I can't imagine, 125.
I know.
I think I got 5 or 10, during college, and that was brutal. But.
Yeah, exactly. And that was like heartbreaking. Totally. There was one time, and I remember I was on the Long Island Railroad coming from the city to go and visit friends or something. And I had just gotten another one over email, and I was sitting on this train and I was just crying, like just weeping. And this lovely stranger woman came up to me and she was like, whatever this is, it's going to pass and you're going to be okay. And I was like, it's so true. And it was so sweet. And I think like, also like with the work that you're doing, like, I think that your mission is to help people, right? Mm-hmm. To help them carve their own path. And when you understand your mission, it transcends the other stuff.
It's true.
It becomes like, if you understand your why, then you won't ever stop fighting for that why.
Yeah.
And for me, like I
was going to ask you what your why was.
Yeah. I think my why was the idea of like, if I can make one person in the world feel a little bit less lonely in their hurt or in their pain, and that they feel seen and heard, and that they know that they've been in like darkness, but that light exists, if they're willing to fight for it, then my day is done. And I've been lucky enough in that people have reached out and sent, a lot of people actually who have been run over by their own trucks, whether they were literal or figurative. Right. Yeah. And of just being like, it just told me that there are ways in which I can overcome this. And that has been so gratifying and really feels like such a blessing.
Now you're the authority.
Yeah, exactly. You know? This is how you do it. This is how you do it. This is it.
Handbook. And that's the thing about
exactly.
You know, and then a TV show as well.
Exactly.
So you're speaking on stages. I mean, it sounds terrifying, but at the same time, I did see you speak actually when you first were releasing the book.
Yes. Yeah.
Like just kind of inching out, you know, into the world in that way. And since then, I mean, 3 years, it's been incredible, the journey. And I love following your journey. And so speaking, is that something like your sweet spot?
It gives me an unbelievable amount of joy. Yeah. Like it feels like I love it. I feel so grateful that people are willing to hear me talk. Like, it just feels like unbelievable that anybody would be like, I will pay you money to talk about yourself. I'm like, I do it for free. But it has been the idea of being able to speak to people and hopefully to just remind them about their own strength, that like, there isn't anything special about me. Like, really, there isn't anything that makes me different than anybody else. It's just about trying to share the story of what you can overcome if you put your mind to it. Because the truth is like, every time that you're brave, you're able to transcend whatever it is that's happening in your world and in your life. And it's almost like your responsibility to share with other people. Like every time that you put together this podcast, like you are being so brave and you're making yourself vulnerable and you're making other people's lives better. Like that's incredible. And I think that with the speaking, it's been a great gift to give people the space to like see something that happened to me. And then also the greatest thing is that they'll share their story then, which is so stinking cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
The things they've overcome, which is really neat.
Mm-hmm. And do you do Q&As at the end usually or something like that?
I do. Yeah. It's the best. It's so great. Like usually there'll be 15 minutes for the Q&A and then it winds up going like a half hour. It's like my favorite. It's just wonderful.
That's so cool.
So cool. It's so cool. And and sometimes it won't even be questions. They'll just be like sharing about themselves and it's amazing.
That's so cool. And I love talking about clarity because it's difficult for a lot of people, including myself as well. And I think, so writing the book, can you remember the moments of clarity that you had that you were like, I'm going to make this into a book? And then once you made that decision, can you remember making that decision in general of like, you're going to make this book no matter what? You're going to publish it.
I knew that. Yeah. I think I knew that I'd probably say like it was the winter. It was like a few months after the crash and I'd been writing in my journal and I was like, I remember being like, I'm going to make this book and I will figure out a way to get this published. And after the 125 rejections, and like I had like kind of a tough interaction with a literary agent where things went a little sideways. And I remember just being like, I am tired of this story not being told. I'm tired of it. And I'm going to figure something like out. I'm going to make this happen. And in that idea of making know your favorite word, of being like, once I've been rejected 125 times, like what's another couple of rejections? Like I can figure this out. The bar is quite low at this point. And so I tried to research, and actually it was working with a life coach that helped me to get the book fully published. And I think the clarity piece to speak to that is of being like, by hook or crook, I'm going to make this happen. Even if it's just 10 copies and I have to pay for every single one myself, like find a bookbinder, there could be something, you know? And I found this company called Inkshares, where it was this idea of being like, if you can pre-sell 1,000 copies of the book over 90 days, then you'll be able to, they'll do the full marketing editing. They'll make it into a beautiful book for you. And then it becomes like something that's in bookstores. And I was like, okay, 90 days. Like I worked in sales. I'm sure I can make something happen.
Yeah.
And, I sent it out to my network, and the book wound up getting shared. I think it was like 800 times on like Facebook. And I was able to sell 1,000 books in 3 days.
Incredible.
Which was incredible. It was the fastest that it had ever been done by a non-famous person, which made me feel very fancy.
Yeah.
But I think like of trying to, again, like carve your own path of being like, the way that everybody else does it is not going to work for me.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I figure out, how can I get the clear mind of being like, okay, I need for this to happen and I'm going to find a way.
Yeah. So there was no questioning. That's the key.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Of just believing. And I think that that's like also the beauty part of working with a coach like yourself, like of being able to have someone say like, there is no other way. Be accountable to me,
right.
Be accountable to yourself. We're making promises that you need to make so that you can kind of move forward in a way that matters. Right.
It's so easy to just not put yourself out there, obviously.
I know.
But you're such a great example of someone who really did clearly. And then it's the domino effect. I mean, it's just opened up a million doors for you. The courage as well. So where did that come from? To really move forward and put yourself out there in such a way and get on stages and tell your story.
I think that it's again, like it probably circles back to the why of being like, I'm doing this because I think that it has the potential to help people because we need hope. Mm-hmm. We need hope in dark times. I think that that's probably like the biggest part of it. And I think the courageous part is something that helped me a lot was my parents, they would come and be with me during visiting hours. And I was still hooked up to like a million machines. I was on a ventilator, intubated. And my mom would kiss me goodnight and say like, I love you so much, and then my dad would kiss me goodnight but he'd linger for an extra couple seconds. And he would say to me, Katie, you have to promise me one thing before I go. Will you keep punching? It's like, I know you are in the fight of your life. And baby girl, you are getting the shit kicked out of you. He's like, but will you keep punching? You don't have to win. Just keep swinging. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's where the courage comes from. It's not from believing that I'm going to win, but I'm going to be scrappy as hell and just not give up and be okay if it doesn't look perfect, but that I tried my damnedest. And I think that that's what's helped a lot is of just being like, I'm going to do my best because my life is incredibly, incredibly short and it's a gift.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to kind of keep the promise that I made to the world that let me live, I'm going to try to make it better for having me in it. And my hope is that, and like, again, obviously some attendees of the talks or people have read the books, I've seen the Amazon reviews, not everybody's in love with it, but like, that hopefully it's something where people are able to get something positive out of it and that they feel a little bit better after hearing a talk or reading a book or having a coaching session, that somehow or another that their life is like just a teensy bit improved makes me feel like $1 million and being courageous enough to try to just put yourself out there, right? At any moment, because you don't know what'll catch.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the coaching, let's talk about your coaching. So do you specify and like work with anyone specifically, I guess? I'm like super open. Usually it's just people who are having, when there are things that feel like insurmountable obstacles is kind of like a thing that I like to focus in on. Yeah.
What I've been able to find is that the people who seem to have the best impact with is people who are usually entrepreneurial, people starting their own businesses more often than not, like women, young female entrepreneurs. And I like have a really nice, like, it's really fun. And it's been an amazing thing to to watch people with specific goals be able to achieve them throughout the time that we've spent with one another, which is a really lovely, like such an amazing gift to watch someone like have an idea of a business and then launch it and be a part of that. Just feels like the luckiest thing in the world. Oh, so good.
That's so cool. Yeah. What is next for you on your path?
Oh my goodness. Well, my hope is just to continue to build out the coaching business. And once we're kind of like able to be in front of and speak with people to do more talks, like I've been so lucky. I'm been invited to be like a panelist on a couple of talks, like online, which has been really cool. And yeah, that's just my hope, is just continuing to build out and hopefully reach as many people as possible to help them, get the most out of their lives and be as joyful as possible.
Yes. Yeah. The aggressive chaser of joy. I love that.
Exactly. Absolutely. And then lots of sandwich eating. Aggressive chaser of joy, sandwich eater.
Yeah. Keep it simple. And
exactly, all day.
How can people find your book? And I know you have, an amazing website with everything, but where can they find your book and find you on social? Yeah,
probably the easiest is at Amazon.com. But it is in a lot of independent bookstores. It's at Barnes and Noble. And you can probably find that. It's in tons of places, which is good, which is really good.
Any digital copies or any?
Yes, really? There is. If you're into the sweet melodic voice, then there is an audiobook that is Just Your Girl. And that is done through Amazon. It's on Audible and it's on Kindle or on Google Books, Apple Books. It's everywhere. So if you want it, it'll be there for you.
Thank you. And I love passing. I mean, it's the hard copy, but and the digital version these days.
Absolutely. And I will, what I would love to do is I'll send you a couple more for you to pass out.
That's very sweet. Thank you. I love it. And when can we hear about your TV show?
Stay tuned. We're like in the midst of, things have sort of slowed, not interested, like just with the way that the world is, but, we're hopeful that we'll hear in hopefully another couple of months. So
awesome.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. We're very hopeful, but also just like every part of this is a surprise delight. So we'll see.
That's the best. Enjoying no matter what, right?
Exactly. Regardless, it's a win. A win.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful.
And and stay safe up there in the woods. That's what I'm picturing is like a wood.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. It is absolutely very wooded. I almost want to show you what's outside my window.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's like, it's just some pretty woods right out here.
Oh,
that's a little spooky. My
beautiful.
New York City heart is terrified. I'm like, I should be nervous about getting killed in Brooklyn, but I'm always like, no, people get murdered in the country. That's the way that things work. Right. Yeah, no.
Definitely. I watch way too many crime shows anyway. So.
Oh, ditto. I know. Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Willow. This was such a joy. And thank you for your courage and for your bravery and for your vulnerability of putting out this beautiful, helpful content for all of us. It's really inspiring.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Welcome.
All right. Speak soon, I hope.
I hope so too. Great. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
That brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoy the show, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. It makes a big difference for visibility. And even better, share this episode with a friend. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode every other Wednesday. If you're interested in working together to elevate your online presence, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me on Instagram at whereiswillow. I also hang out on LinkedIn, Willow McKenna. Until then, cheers to carving your own fucking path. I love you.